Well, hello and welcome to WB2, the What's Bruin game review, the Utah game. We all know what's coming, so I'll just hit it.
Sometimes it's hard to be a Bruin, giving all your love to just one team.
Yeah, that was a rough one. The Bruins have a golden opportunity to steal a game in Utah with all things pointing their direction as far as like all the soft factors of the game. They go in there, and instead of winning, they start the game with a pick six and trail right until the bitter end. A lot of opportunities go by the wayside, and it ends up as an L. The Bruins are now 3-1, 0-1 in Pac-12 play, and we're just sitting here sad for the next couple of weeks until they play again. So as bad as it can get on a Saturday afternoon, BBS, battered Bruin syndrome, has reared its head again. We got so much hope leading into this one, only to have it just taken right away. But thank you for listening to the show. This is, of course, the What's Bruin show on the What's Bruin Show Network. A bunch of great shows on one great feed. You can catch us on Twitter at What's Bruin Show. And we would appreciate it greatly if you'd subscribe on whatever you're listening to. If it's on Apple or whatever you happen to be listening on, give us a nice review. 5-star rating would be wonderful. And also subscribe on our Substack page, whatsbruin.substack.com, for articles and extra stuff. And you can also join us on Patreon. Send the What's Bruin Show into the future. Subscribe for just $2 a month on Patreon, or I think it's like $5 a month on Substack. But you'll get extra shows like me wandering around the mall speculating of how good the Bruins' chances are because, oh my gosh, that Utah offense is terrible. And guess what? It was terrible. But the Bruin offense was just a little more terrible today. Oh, man, this was a tough one. Certainly to watch. And, thank you for listening once again. You can call the hotline, 805-399-4WBS, Secarena Troy. They're winning tonight, but their defense looks porous and shitty, so screw them. Yeah. You can also get What's Bruin Show merch. Look in the show link for the MyLocker website, mylocker.net/shops/what's-bruin. So, I guess let's get to this darn game.
The worst in the world.
How bad is this? Be honest. Is this Windows Vista bad? It's not iPhone 4 bad, is it? Don't tell me this is Zune bad.
I'm sorry. It's Apple Maps bad.
And no matter how you slice it, this game was an absolute defensive slugfest. I really thought the Bruins would be able to get more offense going against the Utah defense, but it turned out not so much, and it really does hamper you when you start the game with a pick six, right? And that really just set the tone for the whole game, and the rest of the game was the Bruins trying to battle back, but trailing, and it put Utah in a posture where they could just play field position the whole game. And really never have to worry about putting stress on their offense, which was absolutely terrible. The Bruin defense played every bit as well as the Utah defense in this game, in my opinion. Really, Utah scored on one drive that they got at midfield. Other than that, they did almost nothing, and unfortunately for the Bruins, they missed the shots that they had, and they couldn't establish anything consistent to move the ball. So it was just kind of a game of missed opportunities. But the final score ends up being 14-7, and the margin was 7-0 for the entire first half until it was just 14-0 right before the half, and then it was 14-0 for most of the second half until the end when the Bruins had that one opportunity. And unfortunately, when you're on the road, right, you have to. You got to have a couple things go right for you. And in this game, nothing went right for the Bruins on offense, like almost nothing at all, right? But for that one little drive they had late in the game that, they cut the lead in half. Otherwise, every time they had a chance to make a big play, either it was dropped like the Jezer Norwood play, or it was overthrown because Moore was seeing a lot of things going on there, and not a lot of them were good. So he put a lot of balls where they didn't need to be quite a few times. really in a game like this when, the margin's so thin. It's a one-score game, really. The Bruins had chances to score, and they couldn't do it. Utah and UCLA both struggled so mightily on offense. I mean, 243 yards for the Bruins, 219 for Utah. Neither of them could really run the ball. And both teams are getting TFLs, getting sacks, pretty much stopping whatever the offense is doing. And the difference really comes down to what kind of game script ends up being from there, who has the advantage field position-wise, who gets to kind of dictate what kind of plays they call. And because the Bruins spot the Utes a lead right at the beginning on the very first play, right, Whittingham is able to just sit on the ball. I know I just said it, but just here are a couple points to illustrate that. Number one, Utah is able to possess the ball a whole hell of a lot more than the Bruins tonight again, which is not unusual, but they have the ball for 34 and a half minutes to the Bruins 25 and a half minutes. The Utes have some gaudy defensive stats up there now with like 7 sacks and all the tackles for yard lost, but I mean really all that was the last drive, right? The one where they completely imploded with the chance to tie the game up when they're deep in their territory. So for most of the game, like I said, this was a pretty even battle amongst the defenses and a pretty even battle against two, overworked, overmatched offenses. But so it comes down to these little things like, they dropped that touchdown pass. That would have been a big deal. Field position was huge in this game. I mean, Utah put like 6 punts inside the 20 for the Bruins. Average starting field position for the Bruins was their own 23-yard line. For the Utes, it was their own 36-yard line. That's a huge thing in games like this, right? Where just everything is it's so hard to get any sort of yardage. It's so hard to get any sort of points. You have once again, I'll come back to the touchdown drop from Norwood, and then you have the couple of balls that sailed over receivers' heads early in the first half that could have just changed the tone of the game for the Bruins right there. And then even on Utah's scoring drive, I think they had that BS call, completely random freaking call of Muasau and the UCLA defense drawing the Utes offside. It should have been 5 yards back, if anything. Instead, it goes to 1st and 5 for the Utes, and they're able to score there a touchdown. If that's 1st and 10, I really think the Bruins at least hold them to a field goal, and all of a sudden, right, that changes the tenor of the game too, because 10 points is just so much different than 14 points in my opinion, especially when they get that score late, and all of a sudden, it's just so much different. The other part about it is, if the Bruins are able to cash in on any of those deep shots that Moore is throwing, well, then that probably opens up a little bit more of the running game. And then vice versa, if they're able to run the ball a little bit better, then that probably makes it easier for Moore to get the ball down the field, and he's not so dang nervous and not able to do anything. So all that is put on them because, number one, the crowd, like I said, it's a terrific road environment, and that is certainly a big point in the Utes' favor. But also, when you give them the touchdown lead right off the bat, that crowd noise is just overwhelming, and it just doesn't go away. And then you have so much pressure on you to try to get back into the game, and it set the tone right from the get-go. I thought that really, if the Bruins could have come out and got some sort of lead, I think this, it just really came down to that, right? Whoever got the first lead, and now all of a sudden you dictate the game. And even though the Bruins still had their chances, I think that if the tables were turned and the Bruins would have made a big play early, you saw Nate Johnson out there. He had nothing, right? You saw how both defenses were just suffocating those offenses, and it's just that those little things. And I'm sorry, I think I'm probably repeating myself over and over again, but really in a game like this, it just comes down to so few plays and moments. And unfortunately for the Bruins, none of those worked out for them. And then when they had these moments when they could have made a play for themselves, it's the drop pass, it's the ball sailing over the head, it's the calling the option on that 3rd and 5 when Moore fumbles the ball. He fumbled the ball, but that's just kind of I don't know about that call. And by the way, Brock Heward, oh God, like, I've been to the first 3 Bruin games so far this year, so I forgot how just it is to like listen to announcers for these games. But that play call there with Moore in the game, probably not the right play call. And then even when they executed, he probably should have pitched the ball. And even when he didn't pitch the ball, unfortunately he's not able to hold on to it. And it's just these things that just mess up the game, right? And so you tell me that the Bruins are going to go on the road and they're going to throw a pick 6 on the first play, and they're going to have 2 more fumbles, and they're going to start every drive from the 23 pretty much the entire game. I say that's probably a recipe for disaster. With your freshman quarterback on the road, right? There's probably not a whole lot of things that are going to go right for you, given those things as givens. So it hurts a ton because, right, the opportunity was just right there, right? And if they just get anything going, then all of a sudden the pressure's on the Utah offense to produce, and I really I could see it, in my mind's eye. I could see it last night. I'm like, as soon as I found out that Rising wasn't playing, I'm like, oh my God, it's there for you to take. But you know what? You still got to play the game, and you can't be the one to to make that first huge mistake. And it was like, it's kind of like the game that happened last week for the Bruins against NCCU, right? Before the game even starts, huge mistake, setback, and now you got to recover, and you're just trying to cover the rest of the game. So I don't know. Like I said, I think I'm spinning my wheels here, saying the same thing over and over again. But God, I just want to get it out of my mind. I want to get this stupid game out of my mind. And unfortunately, we have 2 weeks to sit on this one, so that's not great at all.
What a shame.
Your entire life has prepared you to publicly fail. You're just failing to see that right now.
I lost my mojo.
I don't want to belabor this too much, but let's just go through a quick stat rundown and talk about the Ballers, of which there are very few on the offensive side and a whole lot on the defensive side. Number one, Dante Moore. Do you want more? No drops today for these dudes. 15 of 35, 234 yards, 1 touchdown, and a bunch of turnovers. TJ Harden and Carson Steele, they had a tough time getting it going with just 60 yards between the two of them. Both averaged about, between 2.5 3 yards a carry. On the flip side of that, the Utah offense, they were pretty much just as bad. 9 for 17 for 117 for Nate Johnson. And then Jackson and Glover had a few more yards. They got over 100 yards combined, but they still were, just barely around 4 yards a carry between the two of them. Both offenses, right, average yards per play, 3.6 for the Bruins and 3.4 for the Utes, which is just absolutely, mind-boggling, dreadful. But I will say, curious stat, right? Average yards per completion, when Dante Moore did complete a pass, right, it ended up being a relatively big play, averaging 15.5 per completion. So I already talked about the time possession. The Bruins woefully outpossessed again, and that hasn't mattered so far, and it wouldn't have mattered today if they were able to hit a couple of these big plays, but they weren't. So the defense was on the field a long time once again, but like I said, they did a terrific job doing that. As far as ballers go, there's no offensive ballers whatsoever in a game in which you score 7 points late and struggle as much as you did. But the defense, collectively, they're all ballers, just completely. And by the way, the Utah team, they're all ballers too. So we'll give those guys a baller.
Just a baller, man.
He's just a baller, man.
Straight baller.
For all those defensive performances, very good job on both sides. Just a very frustrating game to watch and just ugh.
Do you think girls like failures? Girls want someone with proven success. Have you won any awards? Like a Congressional Medal of Honor? Or a Nobel Peace Prize? What are your real estate holdings? Do you have a diversified portfolio?
Shame. Shame. Shame.
Yeah, this one really does hurt. When you look back at what I was thinking before the game started, right, and my key for the game when we did the big show on Tuesday was just, let it all hang out, right? And they just never really had a chance to let it all hang out because of the start, right? And just for all the things I've been saying. But it's not, all is not lost, right? And that's kind of what you need to remember here. This one absolutely hurts because of the opportunity that was there, right? The Bruins could have and probably should have won this game when you take all the factors into consideration, like how banged up Utah was and how bad Utah's offense played, right? And even though the Bruins, played so poorly on offense, they still had opportunities that just kind of slipped through the fingers. Like, there weren't a lot of things on the Utah offense where you're just like, oh man, they just barely missed that one there, right? They just sucked, right? For the Bruins, it was like they were either taking a 10-yard sack 3 times consecutively at the end of the game, right? Or it was just, there was a lot, they're getting stuffed on the runs, but there were a lot of plays that just barely missed. And to Utah's credit, their defense forced that. But there, it was just so tantalizing, right? It was there for the taking, but the Bruins just left it, right? And so that really hurts. But if you looked back, in a vacuum before the season started, and you said, "Oh, the Bruins are going to go to Salt Lake City and lose 14-7 to the Utes," if you'd have said that in August, then you would have said, "Oh, well, that sucks," but I understand it. It's probably what I wouldn't have predicted to be that close, right? It wouldn't have been a score that, you wouldn't be happy with it, but also you wouldn't. It's not like going up there and getting spanked 49-0, right? It's just it would have been explainable and understandable, and most people picked them to lose this game. That doesn't make the loss okay, but it also doesn't really mean anything long term for this season because it kind of was an expected loss until about a week ago. And anybody saying differently is either lying or deluded, right? Now, up to this week, it's very understandable why you'd pick the Bruins. But this was a loss that was an expected loss until a very short time ago. So, with that being said, all is not lost, right? And I will say this, Utah is in a boatload of trouble right now. They're a proud team. They are battling. But I don't know what Jaquindon Jackson's status is, but if he's hurt, dinged up, you have no idea when Rison's really going to play. I mean, they were trying to say that he was going to play this week, sort of, but it turns out no, and didn't even suit up. The tight end Keithy doesn't sound like he's ready to play in the next couple of weeks either. So even though the Utes are battling and getting all these wins right now, I'm having a hard time seeing them finish as strong as they have in the last few years. This year, just because, gosh, it seems like they're so snake bitten with the injury side. If they ever get it together, then yeah, they're going to be a freaking juggernaut with Cam Rising in there. You would think, but we still have to wait and see. And even if they do round into shape, then fine. Then we don't have to play them again, right? We already played them, and we don't have to play them again unless they make it to the title game, and the Bruins do too. So they can go on. Hopefully they get healthy, and then they wreck a bunch of other people's seasons. Beat the Ducks, beat the Trojans, beat the Huskies. Whatever. But this game, it only counts as one loss, and it's a loss that we kind of all expected beforehand. So moving forward, you can say a couple things. Number one, the Bruins probably just played the best defense they're going to play the rest of the season, right? The best defense they're going to play this whole season, and it sucked. They sucked. They didn't perform well, but you could still see things that could have worked, right? And they're not going to be this challenged again. So Dante Moore just needs to make sure that he's able to learn from this, get better from this, and have a better performance the next time he takes the field, which is going to be in a couple weeks against the Cougs, who just came off a big win over the Beavers, right? The Cougs have a bye week next week, so do the Bruins, but there's a lot of room for Moore to get better, and there's no reason to think that he won't get better each and every time he takes the field, right? We've seen some special magic out of this guy, and just because he didn't measure up to the test today, right, doesn't mean that he won't tomorrow, and I think we're all very encouraged by what we've seen so far this year, even if today was not a real successful day for him, right? But looking across the Pac-12, there are definitely advantages for the Bruins this year that lay out just because of the schedule. Now, the two biggest games of the season are the next two games. You host Washington State, then you go and face the Beavers up in Corvallis. And now that you've dropped this Utah game, you really need these both. If the Bruins still want to seriously be thinking that they can win the Pac-12 title, which I still think they can. I absolutely do think they can. These are the next two games. These are the two games they have to win. And I don't really see any reason why they can't. They're going to be tough games, but they can. And then from there, look, Utah goes up to Corvallis next week, depending on whether or not Rising plays. Oregon State's going to be pissed, but who knows who's going to win that game. But Utah certainly has its flaws. I don't think they're going to get through the season unscathed at this point. And even if they do, like I said, the Bruins don't have to play them anymore. USC is currently struggling with Arizona State, which is kind of bonkers. But as good as their offense is, their defense is not, right? So there's certainly a team that's going to be vulnerable this season, and we get to play them, and hopefully we'll get to beat them. Oregon and Washington, Bruins don't have to play them this year, but you definitely, you think that they play this round robin, Utah, USC, Oregon, Washington, and just looking at all those teams, I just don't see any of them coming out completely unscathed. Maybe Washington, I don't know. But it just seems to me like they're all going to take an L at some point in the season, and they're all going to give it to each other. And even if it doesn't, the Bruins can only control what they can control at this point. And once again, like I said, really the next 2 games are the 2 most important games of the season. Looking at the other teams they got to play, you feel comfortable with them playing Stanford and Arizona. In my opinion, I know they got to go on the road for that one. ASU, even though they're giving SC a battle, I still think the Bruins will be able to win that one handily. And then Cal, that could be a tough game after the rivalry game, but still I think that the Bruins have the advantage in that game. So it's really, they had going into the season they had 4 tough conference games we thought to deal with, right? With Utah, Washington State, Oregon State, and SC. We were wondering about Arizona. And, that's still maybe tough. And then we were also wondering about, once the season started, Colorado. But it looks like Colorado is exactly what we thought they were, right? They're better than what we thought at the beginning of the season, but they're still not great. And Oregon just showed that. But this really just turned into, how the Bruins respond in these next couple of games, I think. So once again, big, huge, ginormous, missed opportunity. But none of us really thought they were going to win this game until, a couple days ago. So, whatever. Let's process it and get it over with.
Shame. Shame. Shame.
It doesn't feel like there's any excitement for UCLA football.
Oh my God, my guys suck balls. You know it.
If I suck balls, you are king of suck balls mountain.
All right. I guess it's time to get to the calls. Once again, thank you for calling 805-399-4WBS, Sacramento, Troy. Incidentally, this game started, almost gave me a heart attack at the beginning. Getting out. I went to go see Death in Venice. No, I'm sorry, A Haunting in Venice before the game started. So we got out of the theater right when the game started. So my phone was blown up, and my Slack feed from the What's Bruin subscribers was blown up, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, the horror and all this stuff." And so I look at Score Mobile real quick, and the first thing I see on Score Mobile is Bruins are down 7-0 because Ethan Garbers threw a pick 6. And I'm like, Ethan Garbers, what the hell is going on? Is Chip Kelly crazy? Like, how the hell is this happening? And so I'm just totally like freaked out. And then I open up the app again, and then it changes quickly to Dante Moore. And so then I'm like, okay, well, it makes more sense now. But that was just a hell of a disconcerting way to be introduced to the game. And then, by the time I got home and the Shirleys came over, Bill and Suzanne and the twins, and we all watched the game together. But we were really behind the game for most of the game, because we got a little bit of a late start. So it was just like, oh man, just please, I want to catch up to the game, and hopefully they will have taken the lead or something by that point. But no, absolute struggle fest. So not the best game watching experience. But you've heard enough from me, so let's hear what you have to say. Oh, by the way, Nick from Clearwater, Florida, I apologize. I missed your call last, before on the big show on Tuesday. And I totally apologize. Please don't let that prevent you from calling in again. That was my mistake. But thanks for calling in. Obviously, it's a stale call now, so I'm not going to play it. But you're the man, and keep calling. But I think the first one up is Leo.
Hey, Jake, this is Leo from Long Beach. Calling to wish you a happy birthday. Sucks that the Bruins couldn't get the victory. Super impressed with our defense. Congratulations. Hope they get a couple days off during the bye week. But our offense, man, they got a lot of work. They got a lot of work ahead of them. And just disappointed with Chip Kelly. Very, very stubborn. We should have tried Schlee. Maybe it would have given Utah a different look, especially because he's a strong runner. Anyways, we definitely need the bye week, and like I mentioned on Twitter, UCLA should always start undefeated. We're on a quarter system, our players are off. Anyways, disappointing, but hope you find some time this weekend to celebrate your birthday. All right, go Bruins.
I think Chip Kelly is probably the worst coach in the Pac-12 right now.
Yeah, after a loss like this, everybody sucks, right? And certainly the coaches are going to hear about it after a game that when everybody struggles so much. And look, I can't really disagree with you. We were talking about it through the whole game, me and Bill. Like, when do you change it up a little bit? When do you send Schley out there? I think it would have been worth a try, just as kind of a change of pace to see what's going on. It's not like it's not necessarily a benching of Moore. It's just a let's try something different, try to get something different going, and maybe put a veteran hand out there that may have seen a little more. Pardon the pun. But or even when you're going to run that option, like run it with Schley. Why not? I mean, I think that came off of a timeout, or there was a pause in the game when they were going to call that, right? I don't remember if it was the quarter end or whatever. But just throw them out there for a play and see what happens. Get a spark. There were a few things. It was like they're at the campfire and they have their tinder out and they're almost getting it started, and it just never got lit. Right? There's nothing. They needed to find some way to get some gasoline for the fire. But yeah, this is a game where we're all just so unsatisfied. And thanks for the birthday wishes, Leo. It's funny when you're so tied to your fandom, right? And you love the Bruins and all that stuff. You love your team or whatever, and whatever. I still had a nice birthday, so don't think that the Bruins ruined it. It would have been nicer if they would have won, but I still managed to have a lovely time with my family and with the Shirleys, and so it was a very good day. So thank you very much, Leo, despite the Bruins. All right, who's next?
Hey guys, this is Mark from Burbank, just calling after the 14-0 shutout by the Utes against our Bruins. It was an interesting game because I felt like there was a lot of what ifs and a lot of missed opportunities there. I mean, coming into this game, it felt like we could have had one of two options or one or two outcomes. One is that Dante Moore and that offense really lives up to its potential. He hits that kind of 5-star potential and really, gives us a good chance to win. Or, the offense was going to struggle. We were going to have some freshman mistakes. And it was kind of a little bit of both, right? I think mostly a lot of mistakes. Watching Norwood drop that, go ahead or touchdown in the first quarter was tough. Watching Dante miss some wide open receivers that could have actually given us the lead in that game. Actually, I'm sorry, we didn't get shut out. Yes, we scored a touchdown, but it felt like we were getting shut out because our offense struggled so much all day. But there you go, a tough loss, a game that we could have won. It's a bummer to go out losing to the Utes yet again as we leave conference play. But yeah, I felt really great about the defense. I mean, if you told me going into that game that we would have given up one offensive touchdown, 7 points the whole game, and that was it, I would have taken that. That would have been awesome. And, that's what we got. So I feel like our defense through 4 games has been amazing. Offense, clearly a work in progress. But, some flashes of potential there. If we can shore up that offensive line, maybe get that running game going a little bit better, protect Dante, give him some shorter, down and distance there on third downs. I think we actually got some potential to do well this year. So, disappointing loss, but looking forward to the rest of the season. And I guess I'll just end it with a quick question. What did you guys take away from this game offensively? Do you see it as a big negative, or do you see some of those nuggets of goodness in there that we can build on for the rest of conference play? All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Bye.
Thanks for calling, Mark. No, that's a terrific call. And you're right. We talked about the missed opportunities, and it just occurred to me, too, like the Bruins, you think about they only gave up 7 points to the Utes, and that was aided by that BS 5-yard penalty and the Utes starting at midfield, basically. And the Utes were able to cash in on defense on that one pick six. The Bruins were just a millimeter away from a scoop and score, too, on that play. Remember the one where Nate gets just crushed and the ball comes out, and it was almost a defensive score. The Bruins had the play for the defensive score, and it just didn't work out right. So just once again, the missed opportunities of Dante throwing the ball, the missed opportunities of Norwood dropping the ball, and the defense playing wonderfully, but just not getting the cash in like the Ute defense did. And that really was the story of the game. As far as like the takeaways from the offense, I said it earlier, but number one, they're not going to play anybody this good defensively, I don't think, going forward. The Utes were better defensively than I thought they were even. It was just a really gutty performance by them on their home turf. But I think that's the biggest challenge the Bruins will face this year. So I think that, yeah, they're going to play better against other teams. And, this was the low of the lows, but you kind of get a twofer here in that they're playing on the road in Utah. Normally wouldn't expect them to win this game. Dante Moore is, pressured, beat up, seeing things out there. But he got some of his freshman moments out, right? That first pick, the game starts with the freshman moment, and that sets the tone for the entire game. And it turns out that they can't ever get over the hump on it. But hopefully this is the game where he has that, to that degree, and he only gets better from here. We talked about how much room there is for improvement from this game, and it sucks for fans because we got to sit on this for 2 weeks. They're going to get knocked out of the top 25. They're not going to get back into the top 25 until hopefully they beat Washington State Cougar team that is highly ranked, because the Cougs will move up in the rankings after beating Oregon State. So they'll have their next opponent is another ranked opponent, right? And that remains to be seen if the Beavs will be ranked by the time we get to them a few weeks from now. But as frustrating as this was, everything is still on the table. So let's keep hope alive, at least for now. But thanks for the call, Mark. Let's see who's next.
Hey guys, Dennis from Santa Clarita, just calling in after the game and watching currently. Looks like Ohio State about to win or lose against Notre Dame. Anywho, I'll turn this down. Dante is going to be great down the road. He is not DTR. I don't understand I guess any quarterback who's not mobile can do the pitch or the flea flicker or whatever it was. But on the first play, if he had just waited 2 more seconds and scanned instead of just staring down the receiver, he would have had, I don't know who it was in the middle of the field, but he would have had that open receiver right then and there. The drops were horrible, and the left tackle, whoever on the left side, was just a turnstile for the most part. But at the end of the day, the defense, who, in my opinion, really didn't get challenged in the air too much. I think there was one beautiful pass deflection or breakup going towards the end zone. But outside of that, the defense looked great. I think at some point, maybe against Washington State, who is winning by 10 or won by 10, will give us that challenge through the air. But outside of that, I think things will turn around. I'm still hopeful for my 11-1 season going into the Pac-12 championship game. Anyway, guys, hopefully you saved that bit or that soundbite of Mike saying, "God damn it, go Bruins!" But I would love to hear that. Go Bruins.
Thanks, Des. No, I haven't trimmed it yet, and I apologize. I'll go digging for it and try to get it on the board later. But thanks for calling, man, and thanks for all your chatter on the Slack channel too. Of course, if you want to be on the Slack channel, subscribe on Patreon or on Substack, and you will get that. And we are very animated during game days and in their interim as well. And Des, yeah, you hit it right on the head again. It's like, going back to what Mark was asking, like you saw things that could have gone right for the Bruins today. It's just, on offense, nothing did. Absolutely nothing did, right? But for that one little drive at the end there where they kind of got sped up and making plays. But, gosh, that just ended in just like crushingly sad fashion, right? Back-to-back-to-back sacks or whatever. Just like, oh, my God. Sometimes it's hard to be a Bruin, I'm telling you.
Sometimes it's hard to be a Bruin. Giving all your love to just one team.
All right, I'm done with this dumb game. Let's just try to enjoy the rest of our weekend, shall we? Me and Mike will be back on Tuesday, looks like, with just, I guess, fallout from this game. I don't know why Kyle Ford chose to tweet out just a cryptic black pawn emoji. Don't know what that's all about. I hope he's okay, by the way, him hitting his elbow. I was hoping that this would be a game to see him do some stuff, but it wasn't a game for the Bruin offense to do anything, really. But we'll talk about kind of the fallout from this. And if you have any more things to say, if you didn't call in time for this show, but you want to call in time for the next show, 805-399 for WBS Sega Arena Troy. Looks like the Trojans have got control of that game now after being up only by 3 midway through the third quarter. Now they're up 42-28. So, yuck, whatever. But we'll be back on Tuesday. And until next time, BBS and all, go Bruins.